Good morning. It is Monday morning, Moedim L'Simcha. I've been thinking lately about the importance of hands, importance in our tradition, in other traditions in terms of ritual. We have rabbinic ordination, smicha, the laying on or the leaning of hands, literally was on the head, right? Moses was the first person to perform smicha to Joshua when he gave leadership to Joshua to go into the land. In the Catholic tradition, the sign of peace is the shaking of hands, right? It was said that we started to shake hands when we would approach each other and people were carrying swords, instruments of war, and would reach out their right hand, as most people were right-handed, and that was their sword hand. They would reach out their hands in a sign of peace and grasp, signaling they were not going to reach for their sword. So it's symbolic. When I was, probably from the time I was 9 years old, when I left for school each day, my father would do a check, do an inventory of what I had. I needed to have a clean, sparkling white handkerchief. I needed to have a pen in the breast pocket of my shirt. And he needed to see that my nails and hands were clean. And then he would give me a handshake. And he would make sure that that handshake was a firm one, because that was also a sign to anyone who I would come in contact with that I had confidence, and I looked them in the eye, and that my handshake was firm. Probably also a sign that I was well trained by my parents. I think that was included too. Never said that, but I think that was it too. And after that handshake, firm handshake with a look in the eye, he'd give me a hug and a kiss, and then he'd go off to school. The hands are so important. And that handshake was so ingrained in me and so many people in my era. And it wasn't really until, I think, Bill Clinton became president, and he and Vice President Al Gore would hug in public, that the hug among Western men in North America became a sign of affection and greeting. Before that time, before the early 90s, it really was not in American Western culture. It was true in France, it was true in Italy, but not in the United States. And now it is. Men frequently greet each other with a hug in a way they never did. And so the idea of shaking hands, which now has gone by the wayside and may even go totally by the wayside. I know that Dr. Anthony Fauci has said that we should have abandoned it long ago because the hands carry and transmit so many germs. And so I wonder how it's going to affect the ritual that we do. Will we no longer hold the challah together, right? We hadn't been doing it when we were all together. Maybe that's a tradition that will transform to something else, some other way of doing it. The power of touch is so strong. We know that babies who are denied touch don't develop as quickly or as well as babies who have the required amount of touch. And even as adult humans, we need to be touched. That pat on the back, the hug, just the touch on an arm. When you love someone, you desire to touch and be touched by them. Recently, right now I'm at my family's home in Glenview. I go between Skokie and here, and even with my former wife, my daughter, my son, we don't touch, we don't hug, we don't kiss. That's our practice to do that all the time, generally. We're not doing it right now. So we will come back again. We may not be shaking hands as we used to. We may not be kissing as much as we used to. I'm a kisser, a hugger, a shaker, all those things. But I hope we don't lose the ability to embrace each other. As Jacob and Esau did when they hadn't seen each other for years after Jacob, as a young man, stole the birthright from his brother Esau. When they finally came together again many years later, Jacob was sure that Esau was going to kill him. And when they came face to face, Esau embraced him, and they embraced each other with a hug, a sign that, at least for that moment, all was well with the world. So I long for the day when we can embrace each other again with a big hug and know that all is well with the world. So be well.